Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 31st of January, comes to you from London. And I've actually been down in Fuerteventura in the Canary Islands for the last 10 days. It was my birthday. I had 40 friends down there, and so I haven't really been that focused on markets. I've been keeping an eye a little bit, but today's my first real day back at my desk looking at the charts. So we start by looking at the dollar index. We see here we're waiting for this upside target to be activated. We've got two upside targets on the short-term chart. Remembering this is the short-term 60-minute chart where we're thinking days ahead. And this is the medium-term daily chart where we're thinking weeks ahead, and we're just resolving those two time frames. So interesting that we're seeing dollar strength. We're just waiting for a breakout, and of course, if we can break that higher 107 set in October, then we're going much, much higher. And if we look at the euro, we're then conversely seeing these downside targets. They're activated, but we are taking a lot longer to get to these targets. I use a factor of 2 to 1 as my standard. You can adjust the factor, but it's just a case of, are we running at 2 to 1, slower or faster? And here we see we're running slower. And we've got a bit of a mixed picture there as well as we have with the dollar. Looking at the yen, seeing the dollar actually remembering that the dollar buys more yen, so it's dollar strength going up here. We're waiting for these downside targets to be activated, which would be yen strength, but we're not seeing that yet. Looking at sterling, again, sterling strength would go higher. We've got a downside target suggesting that we're going to see the dollar resurgent. So really interesting to watch that on the 60-minute chart. Looking at Bitcoin, we've got these upside targets in the medium term pointing to sort of autumn time, 61,000, 66,000. Those are the train tracks. We do have a new downside target kicking in. We're testing the cloud. On the 60-minute chart, we do have this upside target, but also a downside target. So watching that 60-minute cloud is going to be pretty critical in the next couple of days if you're trading Bitcoin. Now, stock markets, looking at the Nasdaq, that has been very resurgent. Upside target activated in January. Short-term charts, we saw this one was given and met. This target given and pretty much met, was quicker. But we've now got a little downside target, but we are above the cloud on both charts, so still bullish in the medium term. If we look at the FTSE, we see here activated an upside target a couple of days ago, so that's good news. Not yet on the daily. It's got quite a lot of work to do. 77.50 was what we need to break to really activate that upside target. So that's still a way to go for FTSE, but we do have this upside target. Note we had this target given, met, this little target given, met, and this is the new target. So really quite key there on FTSE. The DAX in Germany, that has actually also activated a new upside target. Market's looking pretty bullish, and we're seeing here the same on this target given on the 17th of January, nearly met, a bit more work to do, 17,100 is where we have to get to. Japan, looking at Japan, that's been looking strong as well. Waiting for this upside target to activate, giving us a new level on the medium-term chart. The short-term target's met, and the latest target is an upside target, so that's pretty bullish still for Japan. Of course, looking at Hong Kong, we've had Evergrande, downside targets here, waiting for a new downside target to be met. So that's really quite key. These ones are all met. Remembering if they're in bold, they haven't been met. If they are less bold, they have been met. So that's really quite key. I'll be discounting this target as we move back below the cloud. China, it's been hitting the train tracks as well. These downside targets given and almost met, you really can't ignore them. And the same here on the short-term chart. This is the latest target for China, another 6% lower. So really quite key there. In India, we are seeing this upside potential, so really quite key there. Waiting for this new upside target to activate. We've got some pretty big targets here. Do have a little downside target, again waiting for this target to activate. This one will be negated if we make new highs. That's how the targets work. The Aussie market has really been resurgent as well. We see here that push and then the move higher to the target, really quite strong. So that has been very significant there as well. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. Just a quick look at gold. We're seeing here the gold is really still got this 2400 target in place. A new upside target activated a couple of days ago to 2091. So we're still staying above that 2000 level. We're above the cloud, so still pretty good for gold. Looking at US 10-year yields, of course, a lot of in the market. We're waiting for the Fed today on interest rates, the UK tomorrow on interest rates. This chart really suggesting that the rate cut is pretty much priced in. We do have still a medium-term recovery target, but for the moment, it's these short-term down targets that we're given. Now we're given at 410 to just below 4. We've pretty much had that deterioration. So not for short term, it looks like the yields will go lower, but we'll await the Fed today and see how the chart changes. Looking at some of the others, just the tech stocks, Microsoft out with results last night. Heading towards this target, taking longer. These short-term targets got 2% higher, 4% higher, and notice how all these targets have been met all the way up through January. So you really can't ignore the targets; they're just there. Now, looking at the energy mix, we start with Brent Crude, and we see here this upside target given for Brent Crude. That's been given in January, looking quite strong there, but a downside target has been creeping in, and we are just testing the cloud. So quite a lot of uncertainty, a lot of to do with news flow, of course, in the Middle East, but we are seeing here that we're just seeing a short-term retracement. If you're trading crude, you want to look at the 1-minute chart for the targets intraday. Looking at WTI, that's also just falling off, just testing below the cloud. We have an upside target and a downside target. Just shows the uncertainty that we're seeing in the oil markets. US nat gas, that's been really quite interesting. Targets lower here as well. So quite a mixed picture. And if we look at coal, we're seeing still the downside targets given in place, really waiting for a recovery in coal. But we are seeing some pretty positive signs on the short-term charts for European energy. So if we look at emissions, we're seeing here the downside target is still very much in place, 58, 44. I know those numbers are very, very hard to believe, but these targets were hard to believe when we were going there. And if we look at the 60-minute chart, we see here that target was given and met much, much more quickly. We've got a new upside target, 7% higher, or a new one, 8-9% lower. So we've got a real tussle going on, but if we can break this 66.50 level and hold it, that would be a higher high, the beginning of a new upside target uptrend on the 60-minute chart. So really quite key there. Looking at gas markets now, TTF, really interesting recovery. This is looking a lot stronger than emissions if we look at it, because we can see here that we've got this break to a higher high, so really quite significant there. For the first time, all these downside targets, I've taken off the historical downside targets, they're all met. Now we're looking at upside targets, and that's really quite interesting. Got 1 to 31.11 that was given yesterday. We did actually touch intraday 31.20 today, so that's really almost been met. It's quite significant. Watch your 1-minute charts if you're watching the targets. That's going to be the real key if you're trading gas. Looking at MBP, much the same picture, of course, breaking to a new high there. And again, target not quite met there, but really looking very strong indeed on MBP through that higher high recovery. These downside targets were met. We're now looking to the upside target. So looking like we've turned a corner on this medium-term downtrend. Really significant moves today, so really quite key. And we went out to clients first thing this morning as bullish on gas markets, and we're seeing that we're up about 1.3% there. Last of all, we look at German power. And really interesting here, we look at the daily chart on German power, really significant that we've actually had these down targets all the way down. I can actually add more targets to show the past ones, but just to keep the picture clear, last 5 targets, these were met much, much faster. So they've all been met. This is the latest one to 77.80. That was given at 89. And we actually got to 78. So we didn't quite get to the 77.80, but I would say close enough. Watch for new upside targets on the daily. And of course, you're going to get the heads up, first of all, on the 60-minute chart. And we are seeing here a little bit of a tussle going on. Jump today, but if we go lower, we activate a target down to 69. So you really watch that. If you're trading German power on your trade port or on EX, use the 1-minute charts for the targets. They're going to tell you what's happening as they come live in real time. So really quite key. That's it for today. Until next time, happy charting. Bye for now.